great to be here. I'm Joyce Gordon, head of Generative AI at Amplify, and I'm here today with Logan Patterson from Slalom. Logan leads Slalom's digital strategy practice. Earlier today, we had a chance to hear from our customers at Wyndham and Bobbit, and also see a demo of AmpGPT and AI. So we really had a chance to see how AI is a tool that lowers the barriers to access data and makes it really easy for your teams to be data-driven and customer-centric. During this session now, we're going to be talking about how AI is going to completely redefine the relationship between brands and customers. So let's dive into it. We're going to start our conversation today with two fairly modest-looking dots on a graph. Personalization, which is the major tool to drive customer lifetime value, and also scale, so getting more customers through the door. These are really the two ways that a business can grow revenue. And before AI, they were pretty much mutually exclusive. Going back in time a bit to the era of brick and mortar, you couldn't really influence scale too much. Most businesses operated in a particular geography. They were able to engage or interact with customers in a particular region. So the major lever they had to actually increase revenue was personalization. And during this era, we saw all types of personalized experiences start to grow in store. And I think we've all probably experienced a lot of these, whether it's going into a wine shop and having them really understand your taste, preferences, and price point preferences, or really going into a bank and working with a financial advisor who understands your goals. Brick and mortar was really about creating these in-store personalized experiences. With e-com, the name of the game was scale. Businesses were now able to expand from selling to customers within their geography to reaching customers all over the world. And what that meant, particularly at the beginning, is personalization was important, but not as important when you could only interact with customers in your geography. Over time, competition increased. Every business essentially moved online. And then you were competing not only with businesses in your geography, but all over the world. So the customer base grew, but the competition grew as well. So personalization became really important in a digital world. And we started to see personalization with first name, then segmentation and emails, so things like lifecycle segmentation, and then even got to more sophisticated techniques like dynamic personalization. But we never really reached the level that you would experience in store if you were interacting with a really fantastic store associate. With AI, this is all about to change. We're finally going to be able to realize one-to-one personalization in a way that resonates with each and every customer while also experiencing scale at the same time. Why is this? Content is incredibly challenging and expensive to create, which is why personalization is so difficult. And AI drives the marginal cost of content creation to zero. So it's going to make personalization at scale digitally a reality. Logan, I know you spend a lot of time working with brands, shepherding them through this change as we think about how to adopt generative AI. When do you think we're going to start to see some of these shifts towards AI in marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing it. And first and foremost, I wish I had a glass of wine. I wish you would have offered that. So not going to hold out, but didn't want to make you all jealous. But I do think we're already seeing it, right? And I think just to go back to your story, right, that entire journey, I think, was an attempt to personalize. The brick and mortar to the commerce, you saw, very rough attempts of personalization of, direct one-to-one sites of selling everything from watches on watches.com to, birdhouses.com. That was an attempt at personalization at the time for putting out a site that someone is coming with a purpose, right? I think now we've been talking about personalization so long, the biggest question I hear from clients is, how do I personalize, right? Is it a technology piece? The biggest question I ask back is, do you have that content engine, right? If you want to drive one-to-one personalization, do you have the content to actually get close to that? And it's always been, I think, attempted, but now with Gen AI and different technologies out there, I think it can be a reality. And so, Gartner's already saying that about 30% of marketing content is going to be generated by AI in 25, and frankly, I think that's an underestimate. If you really think about name the technology, how it gets started. It starts by almost shadow operations like skunkworks. And if you poll even Slalom, our own organization, the number of people that are using AI, even not at an enterprise level, but on their own personal time, right? A lot of this content is already being at least drafted by Gen AI, right? And so I think that's an underestimate. I think we're going to see advancement pretty quick, but we'll talk more about how to get started there, because I don't think that we can all leapfrog to that future that we've all seen on LinkedIn feeds and everything out there. It's about pragmatic. It's any other technology advancement. You have to start small and scale.
So this change is coming soon, both in terms of people's personal usage and also usage within enterprise, as Logan mentioned. So we're going to spend a couple minutes talking about the use cases that we see people implementing today, and also how we think this will evolve over time. Today, most brands are getting started with human-in-the-loop use cases. So use cases where the AI is really a collaborator to your team, it augments your team, but content is not going out into the wild without a human taking a look at it first. And there's really two classes of use cases. One that focuses primarily on segmentation and generating more content for segmentation, and the second is customer service. So the name of the game here is really efficiency, enabling your team to do more. In terms of segmentation and content creation, we see things like marketing copy, subject line optimization, image creation. So imagine if you could create different imagery, for example, based off where someone lives, curated product descriptions. So we know, for example, that high value, very loyal customers, they want to hear more about your brand's heritage, where customers that are a little less loyal to your brands, they want to hear more typically about products and the technical details of those products. So these are all use cases where AI is really able to augment your team, help them get started, and help them do more. And then there's also customer service as well. And in these use cases, we typically see AI used as a tool to help draft first responses for the customer service agents. The customer service person, though, takes a look at the response, has a chance to edit it, and it only pushes send once they feel good about their response. Over time, we're going to see increasing automation and more one-to-one personalization. So things like AI concierge, automated customer service without that human in the loop, and one-to-one creative generation. And one thing we really like to think about is, like, what do we actually need to see, or what changes have to occur to bridge this gap between human in the loop and increasing automation? I'm going to talk a little bit about the technology side of things, and then I'm going to hand it over to Logan to think about the change management and organizational structure pieces. In terms of technology side, it really comes down to three things. The first is constraints. The AI is not going to be able to do everything. It's not going to give you the right answer with everything. So really coming up with ways to constrain the AI so it does well in certain use cases, and maybe there's some use cases where the human gets pulled in. I think the second is cost. We need cost to decrease here. The third is really benchmarking and tuning. So the ability to judge, like, is the AI doing well or not? It's an unsupervised problem. It's really hard to measure. And then giving your team the ability to tune those responses easily. There's obviously techniques to do this today, but they're really geared towards technical users. And we envision over time, many folks within brands will have the capability to tune the AI and really match it, make it match the brand voice and also the answers that businesses are looking for. Would love to learn a little bit more about the organizational structure side of things.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, just to kind of tap into some of what we're seeing today, right? I think the thing that organizations get excited about are some of these early use cases. But one of the ones that I get excited about, and I think how you start to go from now and into the future, is really the combination of a couple of these or a number of these use cases to do something really magical. One example of that is just think of all the organizations that have to spin up these microsites for product launches or other reasons, right? We're seeing many of our clients start to adopt all of these human-in-the-loop use cases, combining them to say, how do we go from an idea, a creative brief, to actually a representative page that we can then review, all generated by AI. I think those are the things that really get folks excited, but it starts, with some of these early stage use cases. I treat it from a transformation perspective like any other technology, right? We all know that the case for change is really putting it in in the point of view of those who are going to have to be using the tools, right? You can't just go out there and say, we have this new technology, go out and use it, right? You have to paint the picture of what's in it for the organization, what types of skill sets do we need, how do we upskill our teams, and pragmatically approach it to drive adoption and ultimately efficiency via the tooling.
So I think really what these use cases have in common, whether it's a microsite use case or an increasing automation use case like an AI concierge, is the data foundation. These use cases are only going to be as good as your understanding of your customers and your relationship with them. So we like to say that a Gen AI strategy really starts with a customer data strategy. To take an example, imagine that you go into a store, the store associate has never met you before, and they start recommending products. Probably not going to be exactly what you're looking for. Versus imagine that you go into a store and you're a regular. The store associate really understands your preferences and what price point you're looking to shop at and knows what items you typically like. It's going to be a very different interaction. So to illustrate this, we're going to walk through an example together of an AI concierge. And the AI concierge is operating on the website of a sporting goods retailer. We have a customer who's going skiing at Vail. So he types into this AI, I'm going skiing at Vail this weekend. What do I need? The AI comes back and says, happy to help. What's your first name and email address? The customer is now already a little bit peeved because he's signed into the site. He feels like it should have access to his data, but it doesn't. So he says, grr, I'm logged in. How do you not know my email? And this is a very loyal customer, friend David here. David enters his work email, David clampers at workemail.com, but he's made multiple purchases using different email addresses. He's made many purchases with this brand over the years, so he enters his work email. And it says, okay, it looks like your last purchase was a children's sparkle unicorn one-piece ski suit and a children's size medium. David actually did purchase this item, but it was for his niece. It was 2 years ago. The AI doesn't know this. It's undeterred. It says, based on your last purchase, here are some recommendations for your first day skiing. It recommends this fantastic unicorn helmet, a pair of sparkly goggles, these teal ski boots. Personally, I think these look excellent. I would happily rock the unicorn helmet. Do you like unicorn?
My kids do, but not me personally.
Well, maybe that taste will evolve over time. And then David says, I'll try something else. So what went wrong here? What went wrong is a lack of context. This AI actually does have some information on David, but it only knows a little bit about him. It has the orders associated with his work email. It's quite fragmented. So it's working off this incomplete data, incomplete picture. David's super frustrated. He's not able to get the products he needs. It's a slow experience. And this is also going to be frustrating for the marketer as well who put this in place. It's going to have impacts on customer retention. So how do we fix this? The issue here is really data quality. And there are a couple components of data quality, really starting at its core, identity. The average person has 2 email addresses. They're active on 5 channels, 12 if you're Gen Z, and they've moved over 11 times. Customer data is incredibly messy. It's complex. And this problem is even more acute for your best customers who have interacted with you across more channels than anyone else. And they're also the customers who are going to care most about personalization. So we see that AI is a fantastic tool for driving a source of truth around identity in your customer data. You can use other techniques like deterministic matching or fuzzy matching, but they really tend to break down when the data is messy. Once you have that notion of identity, you craft a customer 360, pulling in data from all of your brand's most important sources and touch points, whether it's online and offline transactions, whether it's loyalty data, whether it's customer service customer service records. And then we go ahead and we augment that data with attributes. So whether it's a historical metric like what someone's preferred size is, or a predicted metric like lifetime value or churn or predicted product affinity, we augment it with the information that's going to be really helpful for personalization. And we also see AI as an incredibly important tool for augmenting your data with the right metrics and predictions. So we like to say that you need AI to both craft the data foundation in order to prepare that data to actually drive an AI personalized experience downstream. Logan, would love to learn a little bit from you. Where do you typically see your customers in their journey as they're getting to a place of data quality?
Yeah, I think going back to your point before you went through the challenging example there is it goes back to customer data strategy, right? And one of the things I learned early on in my career when I was a cashier at a retailer was just walking the floor, right? And it was my manager at the time who was always reminding me, when's the last time you walked the floor? When's the last time you talked to a customer, right? That's effectively what he was saying. I think you can repeat that here. And by analyzing the customer data that you have, that is our version of walking the floor today, to really understand what customer data do we have and how does that inform what we can do with it in order to create those experiences. And so I think it all goes back to that. Let's start there. Let's start from the foundation. Let's make sure that the foundation is right and understand based on our vision and what we want to do, what we need to close or what we need to collect more of in order to unlock that. So I think that's really where we start every conversation is, we can talk about the vision, we can talk about the future, but let's go back and understand what do we have to make that a reality, and if we don't have everything, which is usually the case, how do we close that gap over time to make that a reality?
I love that example because the challenge is really the same whether you're a single cashier at a brand in that brick and mortar experience or whether you're a brand with millions of customers who's trying to personalize with Gen AI. All right, let's try this again with better data. David again, he's going skiing at Vail next weekend. He wants recommendations. Already we can see there's an integration between the site and David's data. So it says, welcome back, David. Awesome, looks like lots of great powder this weekend. You already have a pair of all-mountain skis, which should perform quite well in Vail's terrain, but not as well as powder skis. Want to see some options. So taking a look at what's happening here, the AI actually has access to David's purchase history. So it knows that he's purchased this pair of all-mountain skis, and it's able to take that and weigh it against the request that David had, which is that he's looking for skis for his Vail trip. David decides he's actually not in the market for skis right now. He says, I'll stick with my current skis, but I'm in the market for a new jacket. Show me 3 options. Sure, here are some suggestions I think you'll love based on the expected conditions and your impeccable style. And it recommends these 3 very brightly colored jackets. Frankly, with this, I'm surprised David was not into the unicorn. These bold colors will go great with the pants you bought last winter, and they're available in your size medium. Have a look and just reply order if you're good to go. So once again, we see that the AI is pulling in David's purchase history. It's actually pulling in metadata as well on the products that David bought. So it knows these pants are brightly colored, and it's recommending jackets that have a similar style. It also has attributes on David's profile. So it knows that David's preferred size is medium. It's only pulling in products that are in stock in David's preferred size. David, super pleased. He says, love the North Face jacket. Yes, please order, thanks. So what's different? The difference here is the data quality. Like the actual AI sitting on top of the data is the same, but we can see that the experience is completely different when you have that unified customer profile. Logan, this was obviously a synthetic example. I know you have a lot of experience working with customers on real AI-driven personalization strategy. Would love to hear about some of your real-world experience.
I mean, was it? I mean, Thomas, I think, is still out in the audience somewhere. Is that are we going to integrate that into the Epic app and Media Network and run all of that? Yeah? No more unicorns. Like, okay, I think we're going to do that. But yeah, I think you're right? The data quality is the differentiator. What you can do is based on what you have in that data foundation. I see Thomas in the audience, so thank you for letting me pick you out of the audience there. But I think it's a unique example of how do you target people in moment, and that's a really tough thing to do unless you have that data foundation. You can only be as good as product recommendations based on product relationships, which we've been doing for a very long time. But what you can do here, if you actually know the customer, know where they are, know the events, know their behaviors, you can actually start to trigger real, meaningful, personalized experiences. And that's the differentiator right there. It's really the data. So thank you for sticking with us. I'll say that. Thanks for sticking with us. The last session of the day. No wine in your hand. I understand. We'll fix that very soon.
One of us has maybe wine in her hand.
Water wine, apparently. But just wanted to share a few lessons that we've learned, that I've personally learned in working with some clients, and that, it really is promising. So I know that there is a massive hype cycle out there all around AI, Gen AI. But I really do believe there's meaningful change that's coming. And it's going to take time, like any other technology. We're going to go through those phases. But I do think that Gen AI promises to drive personalization to another level that we've really never seen before. But in order to get there, you do have to start small. You have to start small with some of those human-in-the-loop use cases. I've even seen some of the highly regulated industries, some of you in the audience are within those, figure out how do we start to drive organizational change by maybe standing up a tool that is internally facing, right? So we don't have to deal with the compliance situation quite yet. Let's train our people with an internal tool and get used to, accustomed to working with these tools first before we start to advance and expand that throughout the organization. And then it comes down to creating that identity spine that we've talked about so much, that data foundation. Getting that right is going to save you so much time in the long term, because you're not going to have to go and redo work. You're really going to set the foundation from the get-go, and then understand what are those more advanced use cases that you can start to roll out over time and close gaps in that data foundation. Because every experience I've had is that no C360, no customer data profile is truly complete. You can always evolve it, you can always advance it, and there's always more that you can gather on your customers to build richer, more meaningful relationships and experiences.
Well, thank you so much. That brings us to the end today, and I know we're in the unenviable position of standing in between the Amplify content and also a happy hour. So thanks everyone so much. Logan, thank you.
Thank you.